best practices, like, holy cow, I was really not expecting it to be this good for, these people reached out, and I'm really impressed with how well they've done it.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, to be honest with you, like, not every single, Olympic sport is perfect, but when I worked for the U.S. Olympic Committee and the Canadian Olympic Committee, what I really appreciated about those groups was that they were really on point with hiring like the very best at what they do. And there was they really, really, it wasn't a buddy system hire like sometimes we encounter, in some situations. And they really, really tried to handpick some of the best practitioners in the world. And so a lot of the people that I worked with, I mean, all of them had PhDs. I was probably the only one that just had a master's, and I felt very inadequate with that. But, I loved working with people that were like way smarter than me, and definitely that comes with ego. But we all had respect for each other. And so that environment was really fruitful and really intellectually stimulating for me. And I know that's not necessarily like, common everywhere you go, to work with a lot of really intelligent and smart people who are the best at what they do. And so I appreciated that about working within the Olympic Committee and working for the Canadian side, is the staffing and the way that they really went about getting the best in the world really helped me develop and grow in a way that I never would have done if I had just been maybe in pro sport the whole time.
I have a question for you. What is going to be the best way to measure body composition for our listeners if they're like, oh, I have a DEXA or I have a bod pod? If somebody's got the two, which one should they use and why?
Ooh, we're going down a nerd topic for me, so...
100%. Let's do it.
So I'm a level 3 anthropometrist with ISAC, so I've done like a lot of training in body comp and measurement, and it's definitely a passion area of mine. So the one thing I say to everybody is there's one gold standard for body composition, and that's murder. Murder is the gold standard because we murder you, we peel you like an orange, and we measure you. And I say that to every one of my athletes because that's how actually Siri and all those equations were determined, was through cadaver analysis. So the gold standard is murder. Everything after killing your athlete is an estimation. And so you pick your poison, right? You pick your poison. Every single modality has error. It's up to you as a practitioner to know the error and to control the error. And so for me, when I was with the Olympic team, because I was on the road all the time, I can't take a bod pod with me. I can't take DEXA with me. So I did ISAC level 1 and level 2 skin fold assessment. That was very practical. For me, I liked it because I didn't have to control for hydration or time of day or whatever, and my error was me as a measurer, right? My error was me versus me, and I took the ISAC course because it taught me a standardized technique, so every time I did my assessment, I did it the same way. When moving into the NFL situation, I can't do ISAC assessments on 100 guys in the preseason. It's too time consuming. And so for a while we used bod pod, and then we moved to DEXA. Both can work, but both have errors, and so with the bod pod, we had to really control for, with the larger individuals, the egg's not made for my 320-pound lineman. It's just they got to stuff in there, and all of the science behind bod pod is air displacement, right? Sorry, I'm moving my hands a lot in this. I'm Italian.
No, you're good. I talk on my hands too. But so as you're saying that, I had a 6'5", 350 lineman in a bod pod the other day.
Yeah, and they get in there, but I would always worry because it's based on air displacement and wasn't built for that size, and so and then we would have situations, as you've probably experienced, with players that had dreadlocks and big hair, and sometimes that would be being read as mass, right? And so you kind of have to really know those errors. We had it too sometimes with we would bring the bod pod with us to training camp, and it would be hot in a hot room, and that heat and humidity would impact measurement. So you just have to kind of know that, and then really control. If you're going to be using this thing as a serial testing tool, you have to control if it's going to be serial measurements. So controlling the time of day, controlling what they're wearing, controlling, in some cases, what they're drinking. DEXA is fantastic. I've used it for a number of years. We had a Norland system at the Bears because it had a big scanning table, so I didn't have to squash them in. But if you have a gut full of food, it reads that as lean mass. So DEXA is really, we would only use it in the morning fasted, right? And then there's a time constraint because the measurement takes a little bit longer depending on how big you are. And so, yes, murder, if you can't do murder, know your know your methodology, but know the errors, and then try to control the errors. And you can be, any of them can work as long as you are just controlling for the known error of your technology.
How that ISAC, it takes a while to get that done, right?
So it just depends. So there's level 1, and level 2 assessments. Level 1 is basically doing a 7-site skin fold and then doing some bone breadth measurements. And you can take the bone breadth measurements out if you don't want to measure somatotype or some of those other fun things. So it doesn't actually really take that long. It can take, depending, I just did a bunch of folds the other day with the MLS team, and it took me about under like 8 minutes per guy to kind of get it done. But I'm really proficient at it and kind of do all my landmarks really quickly. So it's not too bad. It becomes really unreliable when you have like overly fat players. So like for linemen, my caliper can't even get on there. And then the compressibility of the skin is really high. So with the dials going all over the place. So, you know, for those bigger bodied people or people that have a lot of excess body fat, you're not going to get any reliable data from them. So, yeah. So, but it's a great, I mean, I've been doing it for 10, 12 years now. I got initially trained in Australia with my level 1, and then I'm a level 3 now, so I can do instruction, and it's just a nice, cheap, and practical, portable way to assess something. Which again, if you just minimize the error of your own internal measurement, it can be reliable, and you can use it to track serially.
Now, as you talk about tracking serially, what would be the best way that you recommend you continue to, follow up? How often is too often? How often is not often enough?
Yeah, so what we know is like so you measure and then you have an intervention, whatever your intervention is going to be. Is it exercise stimulus? Is it a nutrition intervention? And then usually you are not going to really start to see true body comp change at a fat level. I hate to say it, until like 6 to 8 weeks. And so I usually wouldn't really be doing my repeat testing in a quicker period of time from that, because as we know, the physiology of weight loss, a lot of times in the beginning, it's glycogen, it's hydration, and your body's kind of just trying to adapt to the stimulus. And so usually 6 to 8 weeks would be where I would be looking at it. But so like I've had, some coaches reach out to me and they're body comping guys on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis. You're probably just tracking some hydration changes, and I wouldn't, or
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it? You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.